The meeting will begin shortly. Please find your seats. The meeting will begin momentarily. Please take your seats. The meeting will begin momentarily. Please take your seats.
Moments of achievement.
Tranquility Base here. Eagle has landed.
Liftoff comes up. The Coons win.
Of revolutionary change.
Free at last. Thank God Almighty. We are free at last.
Of profound breakthrough.
Lasting peace in Northern Ireland.
Of being the first.
Amelia Earhart, proving women could match men.
I accept your nomination.
Of the triumph of the human spirit. Those moments of joy and pride and accomplishment, new struggle, and frustration. They came out of anger and pain. They were born from defeat and the need for defiance.
The public schools of Little Rock.
What has always led us to overcome these challenges is a decision to act. That decision can be burdened by the weight of history, or it can be the simplest act of putting one foot in front of the other.
Every day is a choice. Every day we all make a decision.
It is the power of what we do with that choice, our commitment to act, that drives the Clinton Global Initiative community to change the world.
Look at all the good that's been done because you made a decision about what to do with your mind and your heart.
We choose to recognize the infinite potential of the smallest moments.
If we want to create a sustainable and safe future for children, we must start with education.
We choose to solve problems.
We need to invest in people where they are because they're going to invest in everybody else around them.
We choose to embrace innovation.
Solving these challenges requires collaboration and innovative thinking.
If we don't work together, it doesn't get done.
We choose to stand up and seek justice.
The world should be standing up for freedom.
We choose to see the world not how it is, but how it should be.
It's a moment for all of us to fight for a better life for all.
Power to the people.
We choose to hope.
All these little things some people may say are incremental turn out to be a great big mountain.
We choose to keep going.
Please welcome to the stage Wendy Abrams, Malika Vaz, Ryan Gellert, and Jessica Sibley.
Well, good morning, everyone. How's everyone feeling this morning? You look great. How do we look? Good? I am so excited to be here to moderate this conversation beyond the narrative. Storytelling has been what Time has done for over 100 years, and we've been committed to telling the climate stories. Culture shapes what we do, who we are. I'm so excited to have three of the most important people here on stage to share their perspectives. I'll set the stage with, we have 3 CEOs and 2 CEOs who are also co-founders. Ryan, first I want to thank you for lending your voice to Time. You've written for many years in an op-ed format a lot of the interconnectivity with business as well as planet. You've had a long history of activism, and you are a corporate leader. Can you share with us your journey and what your imperatives are and how you've been so successful?
Well, thank you for the opportunity to be here, and thank you for the opportunity to communicate to people on issues that we think are foundationally important via Time. So huge thanks from me to you. I think how I got into this, I was involved in public interest work for a very long time. I went to work for a climbing company. That climbing company, Black Diamond Equipment, based in Salt Lake City, advocated for the protection of public lands. I joined Patagonia, moved to Europe, had a much bigger platform, and ultimately just had the opportunity to kind of wade into this confluence of big ideas and to really come to understand the outsized impact that businesses have had in creating the mess that we're all here to talk about this week. And as a result, the outsized impact or the outsized responsibility that business has to help solve the climate and ecological crisis.
And can you share how your customers have actually supported you in those efforts?
Our customers, they rise to the challenge 10 times out of 10. Every single time we ask our customers, we create film, narratives, campaigns, programs, or otherwise, whether it's around sort of trying to shift the narrative and have them see themselves as owners, not as consumers of goods, keep their product in use as long as possible, or directly engage in campaigns. God, they rise to the moment every time. I think about this current environment right now and Mike Lee's really candidly stupid attempt to sell off public land here in the US. We reached out to our community, and that's more than just our customers, and they met the moment in a really big way, which knocked that back, and now we're doing the same with the attempt to roll back the roadless rule.
Wendy, you've been doing this for decades. It's not about age, it's just about wisdom. You've been across business, philanthropy, education, content creation. Was there just a moment in your journey that sort of ignited you to lean in and do this work?
Yes, thank you. I I brought a prop, because you'll be very happy. This was not planned that Jess was the moderator, but when I found out that Time was, the CEO of Time was our moderator, I brought the article from 2001 that was my aha moment. I truly read an article about climate change and had this, wait a minute, you know, they talk about best case, worst case, most likely case scenarios where, but in the realm of possibilities is that life on Earth in the next century would be uninhabitable. And I had 4 young kids and thought, it really hit my maternal instinct of like, this is what I'm leaving my kids. And I went from being completely uninvolved to becoming obsessively involved and educating myself, joining every board that I could. I went to Washington to advocate for legislation. I went to CGI, that led me to a public art exhibition. And then ever since, you know, really working with our foundation, setting up a litigation clinic, setting up an academy at Northwestern, working with indigenous women in the Amazon, on and on. But there's just so you started me on this journey. Thank you very much. And I just, I think there's a lot to be done.
Yeah, we did a look in our archives for this week, and we wrote how solar could be a game changer in 1938. Wow. We do celebrate and recognize our history while we stay relevant, and thank you for sharing that. Wendy, I'm going to ask you another question about your feeling about the urgency and scale of this issue, and it's something that you've talked about. Can you share your views on that?
Yeah, I think 80% of it, most people agree that climate change is real and that it's serious. I think what's missing from the conversation is that people don't really understand the magnitude of the problem or the timing of the problem. We have exceeded the level of greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere. We've never been this high since humans have been on the planet. So we are truly in uncharted territory. I think people think this is my children's problem, this is my grandchildren's problem. This is here now. And it's not accelerating at a linear rate, it's accelerating at an exponential rate. And so again, I think there's a lot of people who are, I'm just gonna encourage everybody in this room, because I think this is a room full of doers who have levers of power from any, whether it's government, business, NGOs, everybody can do something and everybody can do more. So I just implore you to do more now. And just, we don't have much time. I think we need to tell that narrative better.
I'm from New York City, and for those of you who are here visiting, I guess I apologize for this week and the traffic, but it's always like this, actually. What I love about this week, Climate Week, and UN General Assembly is just the globality of everyone coming together to not just have the conversations, but to spark action and to take action. And I'm seeing in the audience, we have also so many generations here, and it's so great to see some of the younger demographics. And Malika, I'll turn that over to you. First of all, congratulations on being named in 2025 Forbes 30 Under 30 in the media category. And that's such an important validator of all of your work, and I think that having representation in terms of media, but how you are a producer, a journalist, you're a filmmaker, and you've traveled the world to visually, again, when you think about consumption of content, how important it is for the younger generations who maybe don't read text, and they care about audio and visual. Talk about your journey, and how are you so committed, and how are you inspiring people all over the world, but also of all ages?
Thanks, Jess, and good morning, everyone. I think it's incredibly important that we're talking about storytelling today. I think in many ways, the climate crisis is a communications crisis. And right now, we are experiencing compassion fatigue. You wake up in the morning, you open up your phone or your newspaper, and you have so many issues to care about. You've got the economy, you've got politics, there are wars in different parts of the world. And it's very easy in that climate to feel like tackling climate change is about the polar bears. It's about the red pandas. And I say this as someone who loves the polar bears and red pandas. It is about so much more than that. When we make documentaries with National Geographic and the BBC and Discovery and other networks, our goal is to ensure that we're shattering silos and helping people realize that protecting nature is intrinsic to all of the other challenges of our time. So if you're talking about the economy, protecting nature is going to help you create more resilient businesses. If you're talking about public health, protecting nature is going to reduce the amount of zoonotic diseases that we have. I think for the longest time we've had this narrative that it is a sacrifice, it is about austerity, and it means less growth, less progress, and less civilizational abundance. But I think the story that our production company, Untamed Planet, tries to tell is that this is about abundance. If we protect nature, we will be able to create a more abundant world for everyone. And there will be short-term sacrifices in that process. There will be short-term investments. But I think storytelling is a really unique tool to help people understand that there are benefits to those investments. And I think so many people in this room are in the driving seat of investing and thinking and leading climate action. And so I say, when you're going off into the world, think about how you can bring people from other worlds. Because I love that we're all here talking about climate action. But how do we step away from Climate Week? How do we step away from the energy of New York City in this moment and go back into the amazing worlds that we inhabit and then bring people into these rooms as well?
Ryan, you have woven the narrative about climate into your company goals, priorities, and communications. Can you talk about sort of the entire supply chain and how important that is, not just for Patagonia, but for all your stakeholders and everyone that you're doing business with?
Yeah, I think some of the hardest stories for us to tell are around the supply chain and why it really matters. What, in a business like ours, and I say this often because people ask, they're usually much less direct than I'll be. How is a company whose mission statement is we're in business to save our home planet, but sells clothes and is a unapologetically for-profit business? How do you square that circle? And the reality for us is it's about trying in every way we know how, a whole of business approach to create not a perfect company, not a sustainable company, but a more responsible company. And the hope there is that that can have some outsized influence for other companies in the outdoor space, the apparel space, and ideally beyond that. So that's really the big idea. When we look at the footprint of our business, 97% of our greenhouse gas emission footprint is from the product that we make, and overwhelmingly, that's the mills on the other side of the planet, none of which we own, none of which were a significant part of their total throughput. And so trying to tell stories to our customers around the impact of product, and then trying to build systems in partnership with our mills, our suppliers, and other companies in decarbonizing, that's kind of the work we do.
Yeah, I think that's so important. What we've tried to do at Time in our climate coverage is we launched the Climate 100 list, identifying the 100 most important influential people in climate today around the world. And 3 years in, the list will launch this year on October 30th. Send your submissions. You might be on this year's list, or there's always next year. But we've told stories of 300 individuals, ages 5 to 90. So everyone can be part of this. And I think telling the stories about people and what they're doing, and not being afraid to, as you said, we're not perfect, to sometimes do better or learn. Yeah. Wendy, I want to turn it over to the conversation around investing. Can you talk about your approach to investing in certain projects and how it's guided you and your thinking from where you were and where you are now?
Yeah, thank you. Well, we invest the foundation's money. A lot of it is in, Chris Sacca was here, Lower Carbon Capital, shout out to him, but many other decarbonization funds. So where we put the money before we spend it, but also just investing in people and projects. One of the things I would say too is that some things we come up with an idea and we run with it with the foundation, but really what we'd like to do is find good people with good ideas and help amplify them. So we don't have to start from square one. We can just, take it and run with it, or build upon an existing good idea.
And Malika, I'm thinking about storytelling right now, and I'm gonna put you on the spot. Is there an approach that you would say to this audience that's been really successful, or is there an example of somebody that's done it really well? And you can't name the two other panelists or time.
Why not?
I actually think that we need to reinvent ourselves with storytelling. I grew up watching David Attenborough on television telling stories about nature conservation. And what's interesting is back in the day, in the 90s, he was telling stories that talked about unpeopled wildernesses. He got pushback, there was critique. And he went back to the drawing board and began telling stories about the impact of industry, about climate change. And I think if someone in his 80s and 90s is able to reinvent himself, then we can reinvent ourselves. And I think for me and for our team, it is really important to make sure we're centering people in storytelling. We do not live in an unpeopled planet, and we must talk about how protecting nature is about protecting communities. I also think it is about making sure that we are telling stories that bring people together across the aisle. Some of the best stories that I love engaging with and love being a viewer to as well are stories that say that this is not about your political affiliation. Yeah. I'm an immigrant in the United States, and I can still say that protecting nature is an inherently nonpartisan issue. If you look at the history of the United States, it's always been a nonpartisan issue. If you look at the Clean Air Act, the Clean Water Act, the creation of national parks, these were issues and these were incredible movements that brought people together from across different political parties. And if we could do it in the past, we can do it today. I know the stakes are high, the challenges are out there, and we've got, a unique moment in history right now in this country and beyond the world. But I think we need to focus on telling stories and bringing partners in the room across the aisle. And I will say that if America can get it right, the rest of the world will be inspired. This country sets a precedent, and if we can get climate storytelling and climate leadership done right, it's going to be transformative for every single country on our planet.
I think that's really important, and I always try to inspire people to talk to other people and go across the desks, across the aisles, and not just talk to each other and ourselves. We're convinced. So I think that's really important. What does success look like? You can go really dark and say what failure looks like. Who wants to go first?
I'll take that one. I think, just to work off your comments about storytelling, there's a lot of positive stories to tell too. This is not a sacrifice. Solar energy today is the cheapest form of energy in the history of the planet. We used to sell renewable energy at a premium. That's no longer true. So that's the great thing. There's also innovations that are just a better, smarter way to do it. So I think we need to talk about the narrative in a really positive, exciting, we're building a better tomorrow, and we have the technology. Technology is even getting better, but we already have it. So that's the good news. And the other thing I would just say too about messaging, since that's our topic, is again, we need to put things in terms that are relatable to people. We talk about melting glaciers and polar bears. We don't talk about homeowners insurance and the fact that I can't even get it in Los Angeles because of the fires. People in Florida can't get it. We're with, I heard Senator Whitehouse speak last night, who said, we could be headed for a, market event the likes of 2008 because of homeowners insurance and related to climate change. So again, that's the threat, but the optimism is we have the solutions. And so again, I think we just need to embrace them and run with it.
Yeah. I'll riff on a couple of things both of you said, and I agree with all of it. I think that what we have found in this current environment is that public lands remains an issue. It's maybe the last issue in this country that's truly not polarized at the moment, and we're going to work our asses off to continue to both have an impact on that issue and try to keep it above the fray of polarization. I think we were asking for positive outcomes here. It's hard for me to not think about the truth of what you said a moment ago and the role of America, and then think about this week. And so I think if there's a role that we can play from here in America, it's got to be led by business. It's got to be led by state. It's got to be led by local government, because it is quite clear to me it's not coming from the federal system.
That's right. I think success with storytelling will be if we can mainstream this conversation. our company as well has been thinking about, we can't just be telling stories about nature on National Geographic and the BBC. It can't just be at Climate Week. It needs to be in the Wall Street Journal. It needs to be in educational materials. God, it needs to be in Fox News eventually. I think we need to make sure that we are talking about climate and the benefits of protecting nature on every single platform out there. And I think if we can mainstream it, we're going to be able to get partners from across different worlds. The other thing, just building off what both of you said, I think business is incredibly important right now. I feel like we've always had this idea of what the environmentalist is, and this perfect environmentalist. You do not have to be Greta to be a conservationist. You do not have to be someone who has no carbon footprint. I have probably one of the worst carbon footprints. I'm constantly traveling across the world, filming with different TV networks and flying to speak at panels. I eat seafood, I buy fast fashion, but I still think I can call myself an environmentalist.
You buy what?
I also buy Patagonia a lot. But the point is that we need to make sure that we are helping people understand that you can bring people into the conversation, and this is really about ensuring that whatever your impact orbit is, whatever your sphere of influence is, you can use that. You don't have to be using the bamboo toothbrush and the no plastic straw, and then go into your board meeting and then destroy nature with decisions you make. This is about who you are as an impact generator, not just as a consumer.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, our climate journalist, I'd say he's the #1 climate journalist in the country, Justin Werland. He's made his life work covering climate issues around the world. And the beginning of this year, he had to cover his own climate tragedy, which was that his family home burned down in LA. What Justin is actually focused on is what you're talking about in business. And he's talking to companies around the world and framing the narrative around sustainability for profitability and for competitive advantage. And obviously, Ryan, you've done an amazing job getting your customers galvanized and bought into this. So we're doing that work too. We have a few more minutes left, and let's end on what's next for each of you and some hopefulness and positivity. I always love to end on that. Wendy, you go first.
I go first. We just keep going at it. I think, again, I've been doing this for 25 years. I cannot believe that we're still addressing this problem. But I think we just got to get up every day and keep working at it. And again, as I said, that we've hit some critical positive points where renewable energy is less expensive than fossil fuels. So that's huge. We just need to build it faster. I think it's doable. It is about the fossil fuel industry has spent a tremendous amount of money to tell us that this isn't real. Well, maybe we should keep studying it, that it's going to hurt our economy, that everything they said is a lie. So we need to fight back about that, and we do need to control the narrative. We do need to make this mainstream. We need to be we should be debating what's the best way to solve it. Should I put a wind farm here? Should I put a solar? Should we use hydro? Not debating if the problem exists. But I think we are getting there. I read a statistic recently that 80% of Americans believe that climate change is real and want government action to address it. That's a big number. The problem was that only a third think that people think that. So they think they're alone. We just need to remind everybody cares about this. You're on the right side of history, and let's go do it. So I think the solutions are within reach, and we're going to do it.
I think the solutions are out there, and we often talk about climate deniers and how that's, what we're up against. But I think it's actually what we need to make sure we're doing is bringing people who know about the impact of climate change, but just don't see how urgent it is to combat it today. And so we're committed to telling stories that are solutions-oriented right now, whether that is reimagining how we feed ourselves on our planet, whether that's looking at the way that energy is transforming itself today. I think we're seeing one of the biggest capital reallocations in history. We're seeing this seismic, incredible time. And I always say to people across the world, imagine being alive at the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. That's where we're at right now with the green transition. And we have to take our learnings from the last couple of decades and centuries and make sure that we're not making the same mistakes, that we're bringing people into the room, that we're focusing on balancing people, planet, and profit. This is about rebalancing our planet, and I think there's never been a better time to be alive.
Yeah, to be perfectly honest, I arrived here at Climate Week on Saturday and feeling pretty beat up just by the state of the world. Maybe I'm a bit of a glass half empty person on these topics, but it feels like it's just threat after threat after threat. And the first evening I was in town, I went to an event and a senior person from UNICEF spoke. And the thing she said in her opening was, we lost 20% of our funding like that, and here's what we're doing about it. Here's the plan, here's where we're going. And I thought, holy shit, that's what leadership looks like. Over the course of this entire week, I've spent time with business leaders who are as committed as they've ever been. I've spent time around young leaders who are not debating the existence of facts. They're not carving a broad swath around inconvenient facts. They're just dealing with things as they are, and they're focusing on solutions. And so I leave here, honestly, today, a hell of a lot more inspired about what's in front of us than I arrived.
Well, I'll just sum it up with one word, because we're going to stay on time. We are time. Resilience. That's what I heard, is resiliency. And we've used that word a lot, especially over the last few years. Thank you to the Clinton Global Initiative for having this panel and allowing me to moderate. And thank you for telling your stories. And you both need to write for Time, just like Ryan has.
We'll do something.
Thank you, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the day.
Thank you.
In the quiet moments, you can see what's working across our world. You can hear the sounds of the doers, the problem solvers and consensus builders who are quietly making progress in the face of our greatest challenges.
You have to believe in possibility. You have to cultivate a culture of possibility.
Today, the stakes are higher than ever.
When civilization itself is in crisis, we must find a way to unite.
The world can often feel like a place where nothing is working. But that's not our story.
What an extraordinary responsibility for us to keep going so that we can help more people in more places live their story.
When we choose to focus on what's possible, things can change.
These commitments and the incredible leaders implementing them are showing us what we can accomplish together when we dare to wonder what is possible.
And across the globe, through this community, 10,000 partners strong, your actions and your commitments show us every day what's working in the world. You are leading the way.
The more people that we have contributing in whatever ways that each of us can, the more likely we are to be able to build a more joyful future.
Please welcome to the stage Carlos Eduardo Espina.
Hola mi gente, my name is Carlos Eduardo Espina, and my story starts before I was born. Like millions of others, my father from Uruguay and my mother from Mexico came to the United States to fulfill the dreams and ambitions that in their home countries were impossible. They chose this country because they believed in the promise and greatness of America. And that is exactly what they found. Growing up in College Station, Texas, I watched my parents' dreams unfold through hard work, sacrifice, and dedication. But I also watched how often immigrant stories are misunderstood and even villainized, how good people are made to look like the enemy. This sparked in me a desire to create change, which is why at just 18 years old, I started my first nonprofit organization, offering free summer soccer camps for low-income kids in my community. 2 years later, I started my second nonprofit, writing letters and sending money to thousands of immigrants detained in ICE detention centers. And after graduating from Vassar College in 2020, I thought that this would be my life's path, to continue my in-person organizing and nonprofit work. But when the pandemic came, everything changed. Forced to take my advocacy and community work online, I began to post content informing, educating, and supporting my community. Quickly, through consistency and creativity, what started as a few clips teaching the citizenship exam turned into a global platform. Today, over 20 million people follow my work across social media, and my videos generate nearly 2 billion impressions a month. Yeah, pretty cool. And while these numbers are pretty awesome, I don't measure my success in social media statistics. I measure it in the real-world impact that I have. The teenagers who come up to me and tell me that they want to be like me. The workers at restaurants, hotels, and construction sites who recognize me and say with a smile on their face that I am their hope. La gente buena y humilde que confía que juntos podemos crear un mejor futuro. These interactions remind me that behind every view, like, share, comment, and follow, there are real people with real stories who look at me and others for hope, guidance, and reassurance. And this is why, since starting on social media, I've donated over $3 million of my own earnings back into the community, paying for people's rent, tuition, medical bill, housing, and so much more. As a leader in my community, I have a moral obligation to help those around me. But I also have a moral obligation to be in rooms like this one, because the reality is that I cannot serve my community, our communities, alone. Instead, it requires me to be here and collaborate with people who can help guide, support, fund, and sustain the work that I and many others are doing. I promise that engaging creators in a meaningful way and trusting our abilities, we can achieve great things together. Let me give you an example. Last year, I had the opportunity to go to the White House to make a video with President Biden explaining a new executive order he was signing on immigration. I worked with him and his team to explain the policy in a clear, direct way to my audience who were the ones most impacted by this policy. Trusting in me and my knowledge of the social media landscape, the White House gave me creative control and authority. At that moment, they saw me as an equal to the President of the United States. The result, the video we made together got over 30 million views across platforms, way more than any press release or TV interview ever would. So my ask is simple. In the work that you do, partner with creators, not at the beginning of your work, or not at the end of your work, but at the beginning. Don't see us as just as an afterthought or as frivolous TikTokers. We are much more than that. We are part of a serious, evolving media landscape and we can translate complex issues into human stories that reach audiences traditional institutions struggle to touch. And we have our finger on the pulse of our audience. We hear from them directly every minute of every day. So let's work together and create some change. Los creadores no solo somos influencers, somos intérpretes de la cultura. Entendemos a nuestra gente y nuestra gente nos entiende a nosotros. Así que no nos vean de menos y mejor colaboremos, logremos cosas grandes juntos y vamos con todo. Thank you. Oh. Since I have 30 seconds left, I want to take a picture. All right, thank you.
Please welcome to the stage Rima Al-Muqarrab.
Good morning. It is wonderful to be back at CGI. Thank you to our extraordinary hosts. Few leaders have done more to bring people together and turn ideas into results. And it's a privilege to be here with all of you who are tackling the world's most urgent challenges. Back home in the United Arab Emirates, we also face new challenges that are equally complex. the need for innovation in food systems has never been greater. And that's not unique to us. A growing global population needs secure access to food. Climate change is reshaping how that food can be produced. And gaps in the supply chain mean too much of what we produce is lost. The UAE's Food Tech Challenge is a $2 million global competition to support pioneering startups building more resilient food systems. And as more countries face similar challenges, we're committed to innovation that can benefit all. That means scaling in the global south. Last year on this stage, we launched our third competition. We received over 1,200 submissions from innovators in 113 countries. Over the last few months, they've gone through 3 rounds of rigorous evaluation by a panel of global experts. Our finalists offer exciting breakthroughs with solutions to produce more food with less water, less waste, and less energy. And today it's my privilege to introduce the 10 remarkable finalists.
Introducing the finalists of the Food Tech Challenge. In the category of food production, from the United Kingdom, Permia Sensing. Permia Sensing pioneers the use of bioacoustic sensors and drone imaging to monitor palm farms and detect deadly pests like the red palm weevil, boosting yields and supporting more sustainable palm agriculture. From the United Arab Emirates, HiveGeo. HiveGeo transforms agricultural waste into biochar to create an all-natural forever fertilizer that sequesters carbon, improving soil health, reducing the need for irrigation, and addressing greenhouse gas emissions. From Egypt, Pevita. Pevita converts palm waste into beta-carotene and pectin to create high-value ingredients for food, pharmaceuticals, and cosmetics, replacing synthetics, driving circular production, and turning waste into profits. From the United Arab Emirates, Homeport. Homeport infuses irrigation and potable water with nanobubbles to maximize oxygenation and nutrient uptake, increasing crop yields and livestock growth for more efficient food systems. From Malaysia, Seedling. Seedling harnesses the power of seaweed fermentation to create natural biostimulants that can boost plant and animal vitality, offering a climate-resilient solution for healthier growth, higher yields, and stress-tolerant crops. In the category of food loss and waste. From the United Kingdom, Flybox. Flybox offers a climate-controlled, off-grid and modular solution to produce animal feed and fertilizer from waste, making insect waste management systems more efficient, affordable, and accessible. From the United States, Acorn Technology. Acorn is an all-natural coating made from waxes, oils, and plant proteins to slow ripening and reduce moisture loss of fresh produce after harvest, extending shelf life and cutting food loss through the supply chain. From France, Jabu. Jabu is an AI-powered software platform arming commercial kitchens with data to better forecast demand and dynamically distribute excess food, reducing food waste and protecting profitability. From the United States, the Hungry App. The Hungry App is a dynamic digital platform connecting homes and restaurants to redistribute excess edible food in real time, reducing food waste and strengthening community ties. From Kenya, EcoRich Solutions. EcoRich has developed a modular, off-grid, and AI-powered waste bot to rapidly create fertilizer at the point of waste, decentralizing production, replacing synthetic alternatives, and cutting costs for farmers. These 10 teams are just getting started. Follow their journeys as they prepare to take the stage at the Food Tech Challenge finale in Abu Dhabi.
I have no doubt that these innovators will make their mark. But of course, innovation alone isn't enough. Startups need support to turn their ideas into reality and then scale. So thank you to our incredible partners in UAE, that is NARMA, our national initiative for reducing food loss and waste, Silal, one of our leading ag tech companies, and our global partners, the Gates Foundation and of course, CGI. Together with our wider network, they will provide investment, market access, mentorship, in-kind services, And I invite all of you to join us in supporting these inspiring innovators. Thank you.
Coming up next, a conversation with Dr. Chelsea Clinton, Bill Reddy, Cyrus Vasey, and Misty Copeland.
As we were working on the film Stolen Sisters, we were going to be working in the Michigan Native communities with people who live and work at the local tribes like the Saginaw Chippewa and the Nottasepe Huron Band of Potawatomi and all the different tribes.
If we're not going to speak for ourselves and our relatives, who is going to do that?
We were really wanting to bond in the communities, so we worked on creating the workshop about storytelling elements.
My purpose is to remember our stories, because we're not people of written stories or books.
Storytelling is part of our culture, part of our history and our traditions, so to be able to bring those stories to life, it's a great feeling.
Specifically, the sexual abuse is what I am here for.
I had the notion of what I wanted to convey, but the logistics of all of those things that go into it was humbling. It was really, really helpful to be able to take away some of that fear, trepidation.
This has been an amazing experience, so I'm really, really grateful for it to have gotten to make some great creative connections, because when you've got a little community, then you can find those opportunities.
Perfect. What made you feel more connected to their stories?
It was a real joy, a break from hearing the stories that I hear, to be able to come and be able to say, how are you going to relate to other people and reach that larger audience? It was great as a springboard into that next step.
There are people in America that know nothing about Michigan tribal life, so I just think it's so educational that it's going to be a true reward to see these. The next steps for our Stolen Sisters team are to go out and secure more funding and to find people who want to elevate these voices, allowing us to really tell the story of murdered and missing Indigenous women and girls so that we can begin to address this epidemic within our communities.
We would now like to welcome the leaders and partners of the Coalition for Mental Health Investment.
One year ago, here at CGI, I believe quite literally at this lectern, we launched the Coalition for Mental Health Investment, a joint effort across CGI, the African Venture Philanthropy Alliance, COCRO, the McKinsey Health Institute, and Wellcome, to ensure that within a generation, global investment in mental health care would match the global need. I'm so proud to be on this stage. As I was backstage, Jules Chapul from COCRO reminded me that I went off script last year and said, they'll be back to report. And she was like, oh, I guess we'll be back to report. And here they are to report. Also really want to acknowledge our just stalwart and steadfast partners from McKinsey, Erica Ko and Kana Inamoto, without whom this work would not be possible because of the real solidarity they provide in kind of all of the data and measurement work that we know is so critical to kind of strategic planning, and then also to ensure that we're holding ourselves accountable. And of course, Wellcome and everyone else. We've been quite busy over the last year. We've had many convenings of a smaller but vital scale to ensure that we're continuing to be in constant conversation and collaboration with one another. I've been really grateful when I've been able to be part of those. We've had an intense focus on innovative financing, kind of what can and should that look like in mental health so that it's sufficiently kind of de-risked without kind of losing a laser focus on increasing access to high quality and relevant services. We have been really proud to unapologetically look to bring more partners into this work through a mix of cajoling and persuading, strong-arming even, but with a smile, because we know how vital this work is. I think certainly all of us on this stage, but likely most of us in this room today or watching us online understand how vitally important it is to our collective well-being and certainly to our individual health and well-being that we no longer silo mental health away from global health or humanitarian aid, or when we're thinking about increased opportunities for meaningful economic mobility and employment. So really just so proud of this work. I hope you'll visit the CHMI website to learn kind of more about kind of what we're doing. Maybe you'll find partners that you want to learn from or invest with. And just really could not be prouder of the work that we've done, and could not be more anticipated with excitement and energy and purpose for the work ahead. So I want to hand the floor over to one of the leaders in this work to give us even more concrete examples about the progress that we've collectively made on this commitment. Thank you.
Chelsea, thank you so much. We are, of course, really pleased to be making progress, but I think it's important to recognize that we know that there is so much more to do. In the last 5 years, the number of those in urgent humanitarian need has nearly doubled, creating not only more trauma and disconnection, but making systems of care for some of the most vulnerable almost impossible. For those serving on the front lines of the mental health crisis around the world, burnout is a very real challenge. There can be days when, quite frankly, the scale of the situation can feel utterly overwhelming. Collaboration on a massive scale is what is needed, but that too is challenging. We all have different needs, different incentives, different timelines. Successful collaboration requires incredible courage and passion. It needs networks of trust, which is exactly what the coalition and events like this at CGI are all about. And it requires sustained leadership from the top down. And it's why a room full of leaders like this really matters. Because I feel that great leadership makes all the difference, and it fuels us, it keeps us going, even in the really difficult times. And today, I'm really excited to celebrate great leadership in action through 3 commitment makers who are standing here with us, each with a plan to advance ambitious, collaborative, and innovative financing for global mental health. First up, we have the brilliant Frank Aswani, who is CEO of the Africa Venture Philanthropy Alliance, which is establishing a catalytic pooled fund to unlock and de-risk $80 million of private capital over the next decade for mental health services across Africa. It is hugely innovative work, and I would love for you all to give him an applause. I can only describe Richard as a legend, so I am going to. Second up, we have the legend that is Richard Hawkes. He is CEO of the British Asian Trust, who are some of the leaders in this work in innovative financing. And along with Grand Challenges Canada and the Pakistan Mental Health Coalition, they are designing Pakistan's first ever outcomes-based financing model for youth mental health. This will reach 10,000 young people, and we hope that it's going to inspire many similar projects around the world. So please do go talk to Richard about this, and again, a big clap. And last but definitely not least, the unbelievably tenacious and resilient Gary Belkin, who for years has been talking about the importance of integrating mental health into climate adaptation. He is the director of the Billion Minds Institute, and in partnership with Imperial College London's Climate Cares Centre, they are launching a resilience observatory to integrate mental health into climate action and adaptation. We are so proud to stand with these commitment makers and to shine a light on their leadership and their work. And lastly, I just want to say how incredibly grateful we are for the ongoing guidance from 8 global advisory organizations that have been helping to shape the work of the coalition. The United for Global Mental Health, the International Alliance of Mental Health Research Funders, the Mental Health Innovation Network, UNICEF, Global Leadership Exchange, the Coalition for Scaling Mental Health, the Global Mental Health Peer Network, and the WHO as an observer. As you can probably feel, this is an ecosystem of stakeholders all coming together for this important work. If you would like to be part of this work too, then I'm hoping there is a QR code popping up behind me. Yes, there is. Please do scan it, and please do come find out more information. We would love to collaborate with you all. Thank you, and thank you, Chelsea.
This may be too myopically an American moment, but I really am so thankful, Jules, that you just inadvertently gave me a Vanna White experience where I sort of gestured up to the QR code, and I was ricocheted back to all the times that I watched Wheel of Fortune with my grandparents. So that was an unexpected joy of the morning. But really, just to Jules and to all of our commitment makers, we're so profoundly grateful. As Jules said, this certainly is already an ecosystem approach. We also know that we need ever more partners in this work. We know that we always need kind of new ideas, whether on kind of financing to try kind of something that may not have been done before, or financing to scale what we know can work and that our children and youth anywhere and everywhere deserves. So I certainly hope you'll scan the QR code. I hope you'll find these commitment makers in the hallways, and I hope you'll now join me in giving them one more very, very big round of applause. It's now my pleasure to ask our next panelists to join me on stage. I think they don't really need an introduction, but I'm going to provide one as they walk out. Misty Copeland, who is a true hero in our home because my daughter goes to the ballet school where she is a principal dancer at ABT, and she walks by her signed point shoes 3 or 4 times a week. We also have her Barbie doll. So it's really just a particular joy, and I'm gonna be that really awkward mother that grabs her for a photo after, and I know all the parents will indulge me. Bill Reddy, who's the CEO of Pinterest, a platform that I'm sure many of us use, and increasingly importantly for this conversation, that many young people use. They have about 578 million active monthly users, and more than half are in Gen Z or younger. Siroz Baisi is an Iranian-American creator, influencer, and activist who has an audience of more than 2 million followers across Instagram and TikTok, and kind of uses their platform to engage on everything from beauty and wellness to important, funny, fun, informative, empowering, and community-building conversations about LGBTQ+ youth. We know that we can't have a conversation about mental health in young people without acknowledging the role that technology and cultural narratives have on all of us, but for which young people are especially susceptible. So really so thankful to our panelists, and now you're just going to indulge me while I awkwardly move from the lectern to my seat. So Bill, I want to start with you because you're to my left. And I think really, as you and I have now had, at least for me, the real kind of pleasure of talking in different conversations over the last year plus, you really believe that kind of protecting young people isn't kind of ancillary or additive to what you do at Pinterest, but is actually quite critical to what you do. Can you just share for people who may have not kind of heard you talk about kind of why you made the choices you've made at Pinterest, what those choices kind of mean in practice, and importantly, why this is the right thing for you to do as both a father and a CEO?
Thank you, Dr. Clinton.
Oh, you can call me Chelsea.
Okay, thank you, Chelsea.
Thank you.
So I came in as CEO of Pinterest a little over 3 years ago, and one of the primary things that compelled me to join was the opportunity to try to prove a more positive alternative to what had been happening in social media. The linkage between social media and the youth mental health crisis has become so clear. And yes,
although many of your peers still refuse to acknowledge.
Which is why we have a problem. And as the father of a young daughter, It's also very clear that it's not a situation that you can solve by the ones. It is, it's not enough to say, well, I just won't have my kid on social media. Because actually a lot of the opposition research that gets funded points to things like, oh, well, when you hold out 10% of a class, they still have high anxiety and depression. And what it missed is that there's an equal and offsetting effect of the fear of missing out because their friends are there. But there's also research that says if you ask young people, nearly half of them say they wish that social media didn't exist. Think about that for a moment. Nearly half wish it didn't exist, but they're still there because their friends are there. So it's the definition of a collective action problem, which, thank you to you and CGI, is exactly the kind of thing that this is such a powerful convening force to go address collective action problems. But we wanted to do our part to say, how do we prove it's possible to have a more positive alternative? So, and how can we prove there's that we can do well by doing good? So we've done things like doing private only for under 16. We're the first and the only to do private only for under 16 users. When we did it, our stock dropped by more than 20%. People thought it would end us with young users. Nearly a year later, we nearly doubled. And Gen Z is now our largest, fastest growing audience. It's more than half our user base. And the number one reason they'll give as to why they come to Pinterest is they see it as an oasis away from the toxicity they experience elsewhere. And I share that not just to say, and I share that not just to say, like, look at what we've done. I share it to say what's possible. Because our aspiration is not just to prove, a positive alternative in what we do, but to say, why can't the industry choose this? To your point that so many are ignoring this problem, it is possible to make a different choice. It is possible to make a different choice as a platform leader and have a good business. It shouldn't be novel as the CEO of a tech company to be committed to the long-term well-being of the people that use your products. It just shouldn't. I know we've got a lot to get to, but that's a lot of what I hope to share is just, yes, it's a collective action problem. Yes, we need many with us. We aspire to help change an industry. We need everybody here, so many great thinkers, so many great, inspiring people along the way. But it is possible to do something different, but it is a collective action problem. We need others in it with us.
I couldn't agree more, Bill. And also, we need those with platforms on kind of the cohort of your colleagues who haven't yet made kind of the public health, kind of protective choices that you've made at Pinterest, to be thoughtful and responsible while also still engaging in how they're using kind of their voices, outside of Pinterest. And certainly we have two extraordinary examples to your left. And so I wonder, Cyrus, maybe we'll start with you and then go to Misty. How do you kind of think about the responsibility of kind of being a creator that feels authentic to you, and also being a creator that is kind of not only doing no harm, but like putting just good stuff and good feelings and building good community in the world?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm very honored to be here. For me, it was a little bit of an accident, my story. I was posting, I'm a Gemini, which we don't have time to unpack, but I love attention, so I was posting online and on TikTok, and someone had commented on one of my videos, you are first generation, you're brown, you're non-binary, and you're queer. What age did your dad leave you? That was their comment. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is such a great opportunity to bring my dad, who filmed the video and was supporting me, into my world. We created a video together. I put my phone away. The next morning, it had 10 million views. And I don't think we both realized the impact that our story together would have in showcasing and breaking down and really dismantling this trope that queer youth and young queer people can't have healthy relationships with their parents, especially their dads, especially their father figures. So when I say it was sort of an accidental rise, we just continued to share our story. I did talk a little bit about skincare and beauty, which I do love, but I think the base of it all is, I think about how, I think, Bill, to your point too, how are young people, especially how's Gen Z, digesting everything that happens online, when every second there's an algorithm change, when there's horrible comments, and there's also the beauty of social media. So I think, for me, it's offering the perspective of, not only can I as a creator have a career in the businesses that I do, but my story is more important than the products. My journey is more important than anything. And that has informed the way that now, doing this for 3 years, I've navigated social media. It's not responding to DMs anymore. I used to do that all the time. To protect my peace, I don't. And a slew of other things. So I'm really grateful that I've been given that platform and that opportunity to use comedy as a way to sort of disarm people, to learn a little bit more about my community, to learn a little bit more about the different issues that I advocate about.
That's great. Misty, same question.
I'm honored to be on this panel with both of you. It's really, really inspiring. I think for me, it's really always been about connecting with the audience, connecting with my community as a Black woman in a predominantly white European art form, and finding just the most authentic ways to be an artist. And I think, I've been so fortunate, the way that I came up in the classical ballet world and the way that I was trained was in a very nurturing and healthy environment. So I know it's possible to experience the art form that way in an inclusive and healthy environment. And so I feel like that's how I've always approached how I'm stepping into different spaces. Setting an example, and as you were saying, kind of dismantling these tropes that people feel, that there can be positive, inspiring stories about Black women that inspire Black and brown girls. And so it's been really important that I'm honest about my experience, but that I'm also just setting a positive example and using my platform to show that there are healthy and beautiful ways to experience this art form, and that it's important to give young people voice, because I think within this art form, we're often told we don't have a voice, and we're just told exactly what to do, and we're literally silenced, and we just use our bodies on stage. And through my foundation, I've created a program where we're encouraging young dancers to use their voice and use different ways of expressing themselves and bringing themselves into the space, their communities into the space, and that this is no longer just a European art form. It's for everyone.
Misty, I'm so grateful you started your answer by talking about how you first really kind of discovered how to connect with an audience. Because I think it illuminates how important it is that while we are here talking largely about kind of technology and cultural narratives as they're kind of sparked or shaped or kind of edited online, we are living in a painful moment where we know that what happens online has deep resonance to the real world and vice versa. And Bill, I was listening to both Cyrus and Misty and reflecting how, last year, I don't think I was in any parent conversations about Jonathan Haidt, right? And now I feel like in every parent conversation, Jonathan Haidt, or research either that he did or at least is now associated with him kind of comes into conversation. I read again, I think it was in the Washington Post this morning about another FBI warning about how young men are susceptible to being radicalized on Discord, and how that is both a real kind of risk to their mental health and well-being and to public health broadly. And so the conversation, I think, is sharper this year than last year. And yet, at the risk of belaboring it, I feel like you are still certainly a leader, but a rather singular one in your space. And so what do you think we as citizens, whether creators or not, investors or not, kind of business people or not, parents or not, can do to ensure that not only more voices like Cyrus's and Misty's are being kind of prioritized in the algorithm, but that kind of the ecosystem is moving to a healthier place.
Well, John Hyde's done some amazing work in gathering research. He's been a great collaborator for us at Pinterest and me personally. And I think the phone-free school movement is a great example of what collective action can do and how it can contribute to this, because there's actually really amazing momentum around it. And
right here in New York,
Yeah.
we now have phone-free schools here in New York State.
Right. And you have governments that are moving in this direction, where you have policy happening, but you also have grassroots, where it's parents and teachers that are leading the way on this. And for our part in this, again, back to we all have a role to play in this. I've personally advocated for phone-free schools. I've engaged on both sides of the aisle. Youth online safety is one of the very few bipartisan issues that remain. So I've engaged on both sides of the aisle to advance those things, to support phone-free schools with governors in New York and California, but also Kentucky,
My original home state of Arkansas.
Yeah. And so it is bipartisan. And we're doing our part as well, not just advocating, but we launched for users that are of school age. If a user of school age comes to our platform during school hours, we give them a prompt, a pop-up that says, "We love you, but we care about your education. Come back and see us after school." And not only that, here's a link to turn off all the notifications on that device. And so it's a great example of where we shouldn't let perfection be the enemy of progress. We should all be doing what we can. And so as a platform, I feel a responsibility. As a parent, I feel that responsibility. But also, so much of that movement has been grassroots, where parents and teachers and local communities are proving what's possible, and proving that when they cross that chasm of anxiety from, but what if I set this thing down? What if I can't reach my kid during the day? Once they cross that chasm of anxiety, when this happened at my daughter's school, one of the things I heard from the teachers consistently is that when they walked around campus afterwards, they heard the sounds of childhood again, because kids were talking to each other. And before that, the kids would be staring at their phone, probably messaging one another right beside each other, but not engaging with each other as humans. And when that happened, they heard the sounds of childhood again, right? And so that collective action is possible, and hopefully that's a model. You see it's happening globally. It's happening in other countries. So it's possible for there to be a different choice. It's possible for there to be collective action on these things. But we all need to do our part, and we're trying to make sure we do our part as well.
That's great. Thank you, Bill. Yes, please. Cyrus, I loved that you shared your anecdote as sort of an accidental journey initially, and yet thankfully you have continued to grow your audience through not only predominantly but entirely positive content. Do you kind of use your story in the best meaning of the word use to talk to other content creators, that they too can have a positive platform?
Yeah, I think so. I think for me too, I, as a person, have just found an immense sense of peace. I'm at peace with myself. I think that's taken many years. So it's funny when other content creators who are younger than me, or they're up and coming, and they're like, what do I do? How do I get into this? I really want to do it. I say, don't do it for a year. Stop, think about it. Everything changes, and then pinpoint why you're doing it. What is the reason why you're doing this? And I think when it comes to navigating, and this is something that I tell creators all the time, and people, with negativity that comes online, with the hate comments that I get, what I always try and remember is that when someone comes to my platform and they're trying to identify my trauma, they're just revealing their own. It has nothing to do with me. Again, I think that's the advice that I give to other creators. I'm sure, to a certain extent, we put ourselves out there and we're public, But by existing as a queer person, by existing as a trans person, by a person of color, you're not worthy of any violence. So I think there is that sort of a nuance and a conversation that I try and have with other creators. And also, I think that positivity, for me, just comes again through comedy. Because what I do sometimes is so silly. You guys, I'm
Cyrus,
like online.
give an example.
I mean,
give an example.
It's just through humor. It's sort of like I asked about my dad's pronouns, and he was like, my pronouns are I'm tired. And I was like, girl, I get it. I'm tired too. So it's like, it doesn't always have to be. I think through comedy, we can find, and I would say a middle ground. I think that if there are folks that come into my platform and they're bigoted and they don't have that room to grow, we're not going to be productive in a dialogue. It's not going to work. But I do think, I have people who come to my page and I post about this who say, I'm from a really small town. My husband and I have been very conservative. And seeing your videos with your dad has really impacted and changed our life. I mean, it is emotional and it does get serious. A woman, I'll never forget, I saw a video of a mom who had a trans child and said, I would rather have my child change their pronouns 1,000 times than write their obituary. And I think that was just a really enlightening thing for me to continue to stay positive and use comedy as a way to, again, what are we all missing and how can I make you laugh to get your attention so that then we can have a conversation, if that makes sense.
A lot of sense. Thank you, Cyrus. Misty, oh, please, yes. Misty, I admire so much about you as a leader in ballet, and certainly as a person, and now very much kind of as a leader in the philanthropic space. I wonder, what reflections or advice you now are asked for, whether from younger dancers or younger Black women who may be the first to do something not in ballet but still in their fields, for people who may be outside of a formal art form, but watched your video with Prince and that made a big impression on them, and a decade later they come knocking on your door. A similar question to Cyrus, how do you think about kind of not only your responsibility but your real opportunity to help younger people use their platforms in the way you, Cyrus, and Bill do, but the way that most people haven't?
It's always been at the forefront of everything that I do, is thinking about the next generation and thinking about the impact I could have on them and the opportunity that I have. I think a lot of people often say, what does it feel like to have this pressure, these expectations maybe from your community to live up to this ideal? And I see it as a real opportunity. And, I grew up not seeing people who looked like me in this space. I grew up in a very chaotic, violent, environment with abuse in the household. My mother was a single parent with 6 of us kids, often houseless. And so to be able to be in a space in the studio, on the stage, where I feel completely safe, and I can express myself and be exactly who I'm supposed to be, is the most incredible feeling. And so I want to take every opportunity to make this a positive experience for myself and for people that are witnessing it. So from the moment that I've stepped into American Ballet Theater, it was like, how do I take advantage of this opportunity? How do I bring my community and so many others with me? And so that's just how I've looked at approaching, whether it's the opportunity with Prince. I mean, Prince called, of course you're gonna answer. But but I really thought critically about, well, what does this mean for my art form? What can this mean as a bigger opportunity? I could expose more people to what classical ballet is in his audiences, and to this day, to still have people come to the stage door and say, I first saw you dance with Prince at Madison Square Garden, and now I have a subscription and I come to American Ballet Theater, and I have been for the last 10 years. And that's the point of doing all of this, I think, whether it's through the books that I write, or traveling speaking engagements, or through the Misty Copeland Foundation, through Life in Motion Productions. It's really about using as many entry points points to meeting people where they are and exposing them to an art form that they might have felt that this isn't something that belongs to them, but that it's bigger than that. It's not about them becoming a ballet dancer, but how can they relate to being different or being the only in a room. And so I guess that's through my own experiences, I try and bring that authenticity to every platform that I have.
Well, you know, and Misty's a mom, and I know that as parents, you know, all we want is for our children to feel kind of safe and seen and whole, right? And that they're able to kind of truly be the best and healthiest versions of themselves. You know, Bill, I wonder, you know, Pinterest has been, you know, in the vanguard of raising awareness about, you know, the very kind of real harms that unregulated, unchecked kind of social media or just technology and media exposure broadly can present for children and young people especially. And then, as we've already discussed today, been such a leader in kind of being front-footed in protecting kids and in giving kind of parents the ability to, you know, protect our kids. What do you think is the next horizon, either for Pinterest or kind of for our school systems? I mean, please take the question wherever kind of is top of mind for you.
Thank you. I think this is a really important discussion. I think, you know, AI has become a household term, right? And like any technology in human history could be used for good things or bad things. And AI is clearly a very powerful technology. And I think we're at a really important moment where, you know, we've all lived through, you know, what initially you could call unintended consequences of social media. I think at this point they've sort of become deeply embedded in the business model, but many of these things people didn't foresee them. With AI, we've got another chance to say, how do we look forward and make sure that we're pushing toward using AI for good, using it responsibly? And while you may not be able to foresee every harm, can we do our best to build responsibly, to foresee those harms? And, you know, I think that, you know, there's sort of a battle happening right now where there's sort of two camps. You know, there's a bit of an overgeneralization, but I think, you know, broadly speaking, you have two camps. You have one camp that is saying it's really important to win in AI, and the only way to do it is to throw caution to the wind. And another camp that's saying, yes, I agree it's important to win in AI, but, you know, just like other really powerful technologies, take like nuclear or things like that, we need to make sure that we're equally thoughtful about the benefits as well as avoiding the harms as best we can. And it is possible to make that choice. You know, we've talked about tuning AI for positivity, tuning for inclusivity. We've demonstrated that we can tune these algorithms to actually help people feel better after time spent on our platform. So if you can do it, why wouldn't you do that, right? And a big part of that is making sure that we surface inspiring content. We've heard two great stories here of inspiring content for people. How do we make sure that people see more of the things that are uplifting and inspiring and leave them feeling better, and not showing them more and more of the things that leave them downtrodden and feeling bad about themselves? And, you know, there's a form of editorial choice in this, right? It's not the same kind of editorial choice that, say, a newspaper gets to make, because there's billions of pieces of content, you can't review them all. But you do get to choose, you know, are you gonna show things that, you know, have people feeling better about themselves or feeling worse about themselves? You do get to make those choices as you're building these algorithms. So as we're thinking about AI, you know, we're not the only ones, fortunately, that are thinking about this. You look at Anthropic with constitutional AI, or like Google DeepMind, I think, has put out some good principles on these things. But those principles are really important, and I think it's also really important that we not get caught up in the only way to win is to throw caution to the wind narrative.
You know, I wonder, just in our last few minutes, oh, please, yes. You know, to give the final words to Misty and Cyrus. Clearly, you know, with Pinterest, Bill has a kind of platform in which there are many communities. You each have built real communities around kind of yourselves, your story, your work, who you are in the world, and how you're inspiring others to be our best selves. Kind of a more personal analog to the question I asked Bill, what is next kind of for both of you, kind of in this conversation or beyond? And if people want to find you online or in real life. I refuse to use IRL as like a shorthand, even in not so formal settings. How do they do that? Maybe Cyrus, and then we'll give Missy the last word.
Yeah, I mean, thank you all for listening. I would say I can't do this alone. So I always say, I find joy through allyship. It makes a huge difference when we have people who don't look like us who are advocating for us. That's a huge thing. And I think for me, I'm excited to write more. I have a project coming out in October. So if you're interested in that and in following me, it's a little bit of chaos, but I promise you it's worth the follow. If anything, just to see content of my dad, you can find me online at Cyrus Facey everywhere. And I am excited to continue sharing my story. So thank you.
Thank you, Cyrus. Misty?
A lot of the same. Everything that I'm doing is really connected to dance and to ballet and the importance of arts education, the importance of dance education. I will be leaving American Ballet Theatre next month. I have my farewell performance. So after 25 years, I'm stepping down from the company. But I'm not done performing. There will be many more opportunities to see me dance and perform, just continuing writing, which I really, really enjoy, and just kind of spreading the word and the joy of dance and movement and the importance of it, especially on our mental health.
Well, just thank you to our three panelists for proving what is possible when we kind of don't take negativity as a given or as a default setting. I'm incredibly grateful to the three people on stage for their leadership as a citizen, yes, but particularly as a parent. Please join me in giving them a round of applause. Thank you all. I'm so inspired by the three people that were just on stage with me, and I'm also really inspired by our next speaker. He is an Oscar winner, he's the founder of water.org, and he's someone I'm incredibly proud to call a good friend. Please join me in welcoming Matt Damon to the stage.
Thank you, Chelsea. I am so glad to be here. It's an honor to be with you all to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Clinton Global Initiative. It's sort of an anniversary for me too. CGI 17 years ago is where I met Gary White. And I don't think most people would have thought of us as, made for each other. Gary's a guy with 3 engineering degrees. I'm a guy who played a military engineer in a movie. It was pretty convincing, but you get my point. But back in 2008, President Clinton saw the potential for a partnership between Gary and me. He knew we were both working towards safe water and sanitation, and he thought we could get a lot more done by working together. So I will always be hugely thankful for that. So at CGI that year, we met up for what felt a little like a first date. There was nervousness, there was awkwardness. And I liked Gary right away, his humility, his appetite for smart risk, his vision. It seemed to me that together we could do a whole lot more than we were doing on our own. We could really scale. And Gary was a guy who would use a word like scale on a first date. So CGI laid the foundation for the organization that we created together, water.org. And also for the second great bromance of my life. So don't tell Ben Affleck. Yeah. So just 1 year later, Gary and I were back here at CGI to announce water.org's first commitment, bringing safe water and sanitation to 50,000 people in Haiti. So commitments have been at the heart of CGI from the very beginning, and they've been just as important to us. We met that first commitment, and then we doubled it to reach 100,000 people. And we proved to ourselves that there was room for innovation on this issue, and where innovation-led partners would follow. So that got us thinking bigger and bringing more people along. And along the way, we did what President Clinton urged us to do at the start. He said, run those numbers up. You got to run them up. You make yourself undeniable. So when we first launched water.org, we hoped that someday we'd reach 1 million people a year. Today, we're reaching 1 million people every 6 weeks. So Gary and I really want to thank President Clinton for introducing us and for inspiring us to think bigger and for doing all he can, which is a lot, to help us meet those big goals. Mr. President, you've been our partner every step of the way. There's more distance to go. We know that more than 2 billion people lack access to safe water. More than 3 billion lack safely managed sanitation. We have to keep at it. So I'm excited to tell you our current commitment is well underway. In 2022, we stood on this stage and pledged to help 100 million people in Africa, Asia, and Latin America gain access to resilient water and sanitation. Already, we've reached more than 30 million people. So, yeah. These are people who no longer have to take that long walk for water. So for Gary and me, CGI was the beginning, and I really hope today is the start of something big for you too. Thank you.
Thank you for attending our main stage session. Working groups and leaders' stage programming will begin promptly. Please exit to the back of the room.